Leicester Till I Die, now available on Spotify.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here. Now be sure to watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV by subscribing on YouTube and following them on social media for all the latest Leicester City news and information. Come on you foxes!
Good evening, fellow Fox fans. How are we doing? Recovered yet? I don't think we have. We're a little bit late. I think our computer systems did what Leicester did on Sunday and not turn up. But anyway, welcome along. And you are watching
Leicester Till I Die TV with Chris and Chums. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Pinterest. All you need for everything Leicester City FC. It's Leicester Till I Die TV. Leicester Till I Die, now available on Spotify.
Yeah, welcome along. Yes, we are. We're everywhere. And outside broadcast this evening. So that's probably what the technical problems were. Hey, they say that some things are like riding a bike. You've just got to get back on. Well, we're getting back on Thursday, but more important for the whole season is Monday night when we've got a little match.
It's Leicester City versus Fulham.
It is, and welcome along, like I say. If you're watching us, there's two places you can watch us. You can watch us on YouTube Live, which is Leicester Till I Die TV. If you're on YouTube, please give us a subscribe. You can catch up with all the videos that we do, all the shows. Click on the little reminder button, and that will notify you when we do go live. And we've got obviously on Facebook, in the Facebook group Leicester Till I Die. If you're watching on that, just give a little click on the StreamYard button, and that will sort of bring your name up so we can give you a shout out. If not, just stick your name at the end of the chat so we know who we're talking to. And good evening, first of all, to me from, again, like I say, their Facebook user. I'd love to say good evening back, but I don't know who you are. But it's nice to have you along anyway. And talking about having people along, here's my chat chum Craig. He's here every Tuesday to have a chat about the upcoming game. And it's Fulham this week. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening, Chris, and good evening, everyone. Obviously, apologies for the late start. Chris has this running so smoothly, like a beautifully tended bed of roses, and then I come along like a nasty weed and strangle him. But my apologies for the tardiness of our starting. But yes, Fulham. Let's go.
I thought you were going to say a well-oiled machine then, and I should be well-oiled. I need a drink, you know. But is it? I know we've got Braga coming up on Thursday, and we'll be talking about that tomorrow in the European show. But we've got Fulham coming up Sunday. Is it, do they say if you have a bad game, the best thing to do is play again as soon as possible?
Yeah, and I think so far, we've managed to do that pretty much so, and we have done, apart from, I guess, after the restart after lockdown, first time, point one, we struggled, didn't we? Getting back on the bike, as it were. But this season so far, if we've had a setback, we've usually responded. And I think looking at that game, not to dwell on it too much, but it just looked like it was a game too far for a few of those players that had been away on international duty, and we just weren't at it. But a 4 weeks training, it'll be interesting to see what team he picks against Braga, whether he tries to rest a few of them. My thoughts would be that he will, if he can get away with it, have a strong bench, but give a few of the other players a chance to start. And, even a point there, I think, is a good point in the context of the table.
I think we said that right at the start, didn't we? If we can get wins at home and draws away, and we're doing better than that at the moment. But it's Monday night. It's on Sky Sports main event. It's an early kickoff, so if you are one of the lucky ones that's working at the moment, it's a 5:30 p.m. kickoff. So maybe get a bit of an early leave if you can. Fulham.
I usually leave work. Well, I should leave work at 5:30. I'll try to do so for that. And in most of our games this season, we haven't started playing for the first 20 minutes. So hopefully, I'll get back in time for us kicking on after 20 minutes.
Well, I think one of the stats that came up at the weekend is that we've scored more goals up until the weekend in the last 15 minutes than any other team. So just get home for sort of the 75th minute, you'll be fine.
That'll be fine.
But we played. I always bring this stat up. We've played Fulham actually only 84 times since we were both founded. We've won 28. We've lost 39. I think that's probably more from their history, because they used to be sort of, a regular top league team than sort of their more recent history, shall we say.
I'm surprised at that stat that we've lost 39 of those games, to be honest, because, we seem to have missed each other quite a lot. A lot of those must have been in the lower leagues, I would imagine, because unless they were up in the top flight before my time, as it were. Maybe the Fulham fans that are out there. I know there's not that many, but I'm surprised. Well, I'm not being negative there. I'm just thinking, you're surrounded by a lot of big clubs in London, and I always feel sorry for the likes of Fulham and QPR and Brentford. And I've often wondered, slight aside, as to if I lived in London, what team I would support. Would it be based on geographical grounds, or would I just pick a team? And I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think if you were born there, you've got to go for the club that either your dad supported or supports, or where you are. But I think that goes back actually, because during sort of the sort of late 60s, certainly in the 70s and 80s, we were pretty much a yo-yo team. We were the West Brom of our day, coming up and down. And I think Fulham were quite an established. This was, in the days of Filbert Street and grounds like that. I mean, we've moved on. They've still got the Cottage, which is one of the smaller grounds. Yeah. But I think he was going back to those things when they were more of an established team. But if we have a look at, I'm going to ask you first of all, looking at the table, I'm just bringing that up here, and I don't know if you can see that at all. We were down to 5th until Wolves equalised, but we still sat there in 4th. Fulham 3rd from bottom. They've lost 3, won 1, drawn 1. And I know games are never won on paper, never won on where the table is. We know that from Norwich last season. Yeah. Good time to be playing. Coming off the Liverpool, not so much the loss, but the performance again. Is it a good time to be playing Fulham? Is it a good time to be playing a team like Fulham rather than invite, the Chelsea or somebody like that?
I think it probably is. I haven't seen a lot of Fulham, but what I have seen, they seem to be slow starters. I know we're slow starters, but they seem to be quite slow starters as well. At the weekend, they were pretty poor. They showed a bit of fight towards the end, and they could have actually got something at the end of it, but they don't seem to be like a team full of confidence. Now, our only issue for me would be if they come out and come at us enough for us to play our own game. We're notoriously not great at breaking teams down, but I think they're at home, even though there's no fans there. I think the onus is on them to come forward. So I think overall it's a decent team for us to be playing.
Yes, they like I say, they've only sort of won the one, and I think they missed a penalty, didn't they, against Everton? Otherwise, they'd have got a point.
They did the classic. A Mahrez slip double hit penalty over the bar, I think.
Well, was it? Oh, I didn't see that, I must admit. But like you say, it's you can only play who's in front of you. We don't have any choice. But they've got to come at us. They kind of, along with West Brom, look like being the whipping boys. They've not done an awful lot in the transfer market. But like you say, we were thinking that with Norwich last season, and they sort of did us. I mean, the guy here, and again, please, I do apologise because I don't know who it is. Just come up as Facebook user, but we will stuff Fulham. I mean, I hope so, but I think that might be being a bit optimistic.
That's Brendan Rodgers, because I think he watches the show, so I think that might be Brendan.
Only for your thoughts and see what your formation and team is, so we can pick that.
So you can go against it, yeah.
Pick that for the game. Yes, like I say, you can't take any team too lightly, can you? Really? I mean, what are we now in a position where? And I don't want to keep going back to the Liverpool game. I mean, was it just a bad day at the office? We used to be their bogey team, and they would admit that, but they're our bogey team. We've only won twice since we got promoted back, up here. They sort of do keep giving us these lessons, don't they?
They do seem to be our bogey team, and it's almost like we have this inferiority complex against Liverpool now. Whether Brendan's brought that, because even in games previously where we've had other managers, obviously we did really well against them in the title winning season, but
yeah,
I don't think we've sat back as much as we have under Brendan, and I wonder whether, being ex-manager, he has this view of Liverpool as almost the team to try and emulate, and we sat back and we sat off. As I say, I think a few players were tired. Tielemans looked tired to me. Yeah. He played really well for Belgium, but it looked a little bit of a game too far. But I thought, you look at our team, you look at theirs. I'm just worried that he doesn't trust our team enough in our good players to get us on the ball and take the game to the opposition. It's okay having this sort of sit back and hit them on the break mentality against some teams, but as I mentioned, I think last Tuesday when we were looking ahead to the Liverpool game, a team that's aggressive like Liverpool are, I'm not sure we have a big enough backbone to fight fire against fire. So I think he needed to be more aggressive, and maybe with the Barnes chance that was missed, it would have been a different game. Yeah. But disappointing. Yeah. But I think they've got to put it behind them. And as I say, I think Fulham's a good game for us to try and do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't blame injuries. You can't, they had, as good a players out as we did. And we'll come on to injuries in a second. But yes, you look at it and think, well, it's an international break. There was no games. Barnes and Maddison didn't go, but they still look like they're running through treacle.
Yeah, and obviously momentum's a big thing in football. We had some decent momentum going into that international break, and it sort of put the brakes on us a little bit. So those players that were left behind are training with half a squad. You can't do a lot in that time when most of the other players were away on international duty. So I think even for the ones that stayed behind, I think it threw them a little bit, and hopefully we've got that one game out of the way. And in many respects, I'd rather us drop points to Liverpool than some of the lesser teams, because we can get back on the bike, as I say, and put a good performance in and kickstart again.
Yeah, it's almost like, I guess, and you don't want to lose to anybody, obviously. We're fans. We want to win every single game. We can't physically win every single game. I know we only lost 3 in the, Champions winning season, but I mean, you got to look to some points. That was almost like a one-off. Leicester do have a habit, though, of doing quite well against the bigger teams and struggling against some of the lesser teams.
We do, but I think again you'd say that was more previously. The last few seasons, I don't think we have. I don't think we've done particularly well against Man United. I don't think we've done particularly well against Man City. Obviously, we've had a couple of good wins, and we had a good win there this season. We've taken points. We've snatched wins at home. I don't think we've looked particularly dominant against any of the so-called big 6 teams. We've got some results, but I'm not sure, and it'd be interesting to hear from some of the viewers about how they feel. But I still don't feel, as a Leicester fan, that we are part of that big six in terms of the way we play. We do seem like we have this inferiority complex. I never look at us as going into games and thinking, yes, we'll definitely win this, even against some of the lesser teams, because I think being a big six team is about having a mentality of a big club as well. And I don't think we have that yet. And that's something we need to build on and work on.
I think we're very much. I think since we won the league, I think we're expecting we should be doing it every season, and sometimes you just need a little reminder. It's almost like the big boy slapping down a little boy saying, "Oh, you get in line," sort of thing.
I think Liverpool these days are a bit of our reality check. We've had it a few times with Liverpool now, and they sort of. I mean, last season when they came down, we were flying high. Last season, I think, when they came down to the King Power and taught us a football in Leicester and beat us 4-0, and they've done it again. So I think they are a bit of a gauge for us, and they sort of slap us back in line, as it were, and realise that we have to work hard to get our points, and we can't just go through the motions.
We can't, and like you say, there's some teams. If you lose, you've just got to go. Yeah, you know what I mean. They were better. They deserved it, and we are. If we lose against Fulham, I think you've got to put a different face on it and say, they aren't the teams, we should have. I mean, good evening to Matthew. He says there we have plenty of players who shouldn't have looked tired. I know Tillemans, he said, had played the equivalent of like 5 hours football in 2 weeks with our games and Belgium's games. Matthew, again, reality check. You're definitely sure there. This is very true. And this is the thing I always feel. Facebook user, out of form strikers always score against us, so no doubt Fulham will score a penalty. I mean, it is. It's almost like ex-players, they're going to score against us, and I hate it when the commentators say just before the game starts, like the viewer there said, like, "Well, this guy's not scored for sort of 3 hours and 40 minutes, so can he break the duck today?" And you think, yeah, this is Leicester. It's going to happen. But I mean, the last time we played, it was two. Sorry,
I was going to say, who needs the opposition? Who needs the opposition when you've got Johnny Evans to nod one in from a corner?
Now, I don't know if you saw it. We actually asked Julian Watts. We had the defender who's joining us here at Leicester Till I Die on our post-match show. So it's nice to have him along whenever he can make it. Obviously, not all the time. But from a defender's point of view, I think he sort of said Johnny took his eyes off the ball, and it was just sort of one of those. But although again, you and me are both old enough to remember, I'm sure, the season of the Frank Sinclair own goals. I think he was sort of, the top goal scorer against us that season.
And some of those were spectacular. I remember him putting one in from 30 yards again.
I was about to say, wasn't one about the halfway line or something like that, Yeah. But we've not played Fulham. Obviously, they got relegated and then they've just come back up. So going back to the 18-19 season there, we got a draw at their place in the December and a 3-1 win in the March. So it's going to be disappointing if we don't win, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you look at the way they've played this season, they've not been great, have they, to be honest?
No.
The interesting thing will be whether Scott Parker goes with a few of those players that he brought off the bench for the last 25 minutes against Everton, because they looked like they had something to prove. There was 2 or 3 players there that definitely stepped up the pace of the game. They were more aggressive. Anguissa, I think, was one of them who looked pretty good coming on. So they have got some players who can probably catch us unawares, because we won't know a lot about them. Obviously, the backroom staff will have. That's very nice. Hello, whoever you are.
I think that might be Mrs. Twigger saying hello. I tell you what, if it is, she's putting herself about a bit. Brad, then Julian the other night. Now I am feeling left out, Mrs. Twigger.
We'll start some kind of Facebook campaign for you, Chris. Don't worry.
Thanks very much. Starting one of those petitions, But
you're welcome.
That's thrown me off now. I'm not sure what we're talking
No, we were
about.
talking about it being a game that we should win, and we should win. I mean, their top scorers, D. Cordova Reed, I think he's gone with his double barrel name now. He's got 3. I remember him a couple of years ago, and I thought he was a player who might go on to do really well. He looked a bit in the Jamie mould. Plays on the shoulder, very quick, a decent finisher. But I don't think he's reached his potential yet. But he's started to score goals this season, whereas Mitrovic hasn't. There's the cue for him to go and bag a couple on there.
Oh, you said it now. You said it now. If he scores, I'm going to hold you responsible. But I mean, I haven't got a graph for it this week, but just sort of going through the injuries, because it's looking a little bit better. I mean, I'm just looking on the website now. Soyuncu is still out, maybe a few weeks away, but training with the squad. This is on premierinjuries.com. Castagna comes in as a 50% chance of playing. Slight twinge, hopefully him missing tonight, which I presume was the Liverpool game, and having a clear week will get him ready for our next game. We had a scan and it's okay. So looking at that, it doesn't look like he'll be playing against Braga, and then hopefully he'll be fit and up for Fulham.
I mean, if we look at a team that I think Brendan may go with, although he seems to be not listening to anything I say at the minute for some reason.
Mad fool.
I'm expecting Castagna to come back in. To be honest, it was encouraging to see that when they did the scan, there wasn't any damage there, and it was just a twinge. So hopefully he will be fit. And I think we missed that balance of the 2 marauding wing backs. I thought against Liverpool, I thought James Justin did a decent job. To be honest, he was trying to take the game forward. I don't think anybody sort of got high marks in that, but of the players who did play, I thought he did a good job. So I'm expecting him to possibly switch over to the right with Castagna back on the left.
So would you give Castagna, if we're winning, would you give him 10 minutes on Thursday, just give him a run out?
Probably not, to be honest, because I don't see the benefit. I know you can say, he gets 10 minutes under his belt, but he also gets the opportunity to twinge or get a knock. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets a little bit, but I'm not sure how much good it will do. Getting up to match fitness, it's not exactly the pace of the Premier League over there in Portugal anyway, so I'm not sure what it would give us. I would think, just protect him and put him back in on Monday night.
Oh, and it's nice we've got those extra few days, I guess, till Monday for to rest these players. Ndidi and Marty both ruled out. Ndidi, Wolf is out on the field. He still has a number of weeks to go, but he's progressing well. Marty, Daniel is out with his hamstring for a number of weeks, so the international break hasn't been too kind for us. I'm not quite sure. I thought it was the other way around. The big one is Piera. He's down as 50% chance of playing, along with Castagna, and the only thing with him is lacking match fitness. But he did have a full game in the under-23s the other night.
He did. I'm not sure how well he did, but he did get a good run out. I mean, I saw the goals from that, and I must admit I was very impressed with the 2 goals that Damari Gray scored. That was going to be my next point, actually. Yeah, he doesn't seem to have been anywhere near the first team squad recently, but he almost looked, his reaction to, I think it was the second goal, it was almost like, this is what I can do if I'm given a chance. Yeah. But he has had a lot of chances. But it'd be interesting to see whether Brendan took a look at that, and they were both very good finishes. And to be honest, Harvey's not covering himself in a lot of glory at the minute with his finishing, so maybe there is a route back for Damari.
Is Damari, just remind me, I think he is in the squad for the Premier League, isn't he?
Yes, I think he is.
It's the European one he's been left out of. And I mean, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I always think, I had great hopes, and I think we all did when we signed Damari. He was sort of, a great prospect. But he's just like you say, he's never been consistent. A bit like Harvey, you know. I mean, Harvey's great when he's on the boil. Sometimes he's not on the boil, but Gray has got it in him and has got that finish. And you don't know the way the injuries are going. Like you say, there may be a way back.
I think the thing is, if you want to make that step up to be a consistent top 6 team, you need your players to be consistent. And I think that's what we haven't got at the minute. We've got too many inconsistent players. You talk about Damari, you talk about Harvey, Perez, Iheanacho when he plays. It's too inconsistent, and we need to be getting a 7.5 out of everybody in every game if we want to be realistic top 6, top 4 contenders.
Do you think it's only my personal opinion. Of course, football is all about opinions, but we used to have a reserve team. And so you players like Iheanacho, like Gray, when, they weren't playing for the first team, they were still playing every week in the reserves. And I think it's silly now that, you go from the first team to the under-23s and you're only allowed a couple in there. There's nowhere for these squad players, unless you send them out on loan, to get regular football, is there?
You know what? It's I know this comes up quite a lot, Chris. And to be honest, the way that squads are increasing in size, I can understand why it was stopped because, apart from the big clubs, teams didn't have huge squads, so they were just filled with youngsters. And now you've got the development league, and you've got the under-23 now. But the way that squads are growing, it would not surprise me if it didn't come back and it almost became some kind of midweek league. Got its own television deal because there's enough players in these squads now who you say are not getting regular football. I would imagine that particularly during the period where there aren't European games, that would get midweek football, live midweek football featuring quite a few well-known players in a reserve league may get a few viewers if it was televised. So watch this space for that not to happen.
Well, talking about things not to happen, I've just sent Brendan a text saying, "Get on now, because this is your moment now." When we look at what Brendan should, if you were in Brendan's shoes, I know we got. It's always hard because we have got that midweek game coming up. But taking that aside, what you think he will do, formation and lineup wise, different to Liverpool when we welcome Fulham.
Well, if I was in Brendan's shoes, Brendan looks like a very small man. I think if I was in his shoes, they might be sort of hurting a little bit. But from a managerial point of view, yes, it's a family show, Chris. I think he'll stick with the back 5 again, and I would like to see us get to a point where we transition back to a back 4. A sort of 4-1-4-1. But I don't think we can do it until Soyuncu's back, because I think playing Evans with one of the others, with Fofana, I'm not convinced about the coverage that Evans can give us these days. And as we saw even at Liverpool early on in the game, Fofana does like to come out with the ball. Soyuncu likes to come out with the ball as well, so it could be quite either exciting or dangerous if we had those two as a back 2. For now, because Caglar's not there, I think he'll stick with the 3. So I'm going to go with the surprise, actually. I'm going to go with Casper in goal.
No.
Yeah. I know. But then the back 3, Fofana, Evans, and your fellow presenter's favourite, Fuchs.
That was what I was waiting for.
On the left side of a 3, I think he's a very solid player for us. So I have no problems playing him in there. I would bring Castagna back on the left and switch James Justin to the right.
Okay.
And then, pretty much what you would think. I'd have Mendy in front. I did change my mind, actually, because I originally had Maddison, Tielemans, and Pratt as the midfield three, but I'm going to go with Barnes, and I've got Tielemans with instead of Pratt. Although part of me thinks I wonder if Tielemans does need a rest, and if you played Pratt in between Barnes and Maddison, whether that may be a bit more solid, but for now I'll go Maddison, Tielemans, and Barnes with Vardy up front. I think it may be the right kind of game for Barnes. I think we'll have a lot more of the ball. I think we'll be going forward more, and therefore it's a good opportunity for him to get his confidence back, and I think it'll be a good game for him. So I did change and I did bring him back in instead of Pratt.
And subs, would you bring in on under? And I mean, would you bring Pierre on for again easing back in maybe for the last 15 if we win in?
Well, you know, who knows at the minute? You know, as the week goes on, we may even end up with 5 subs by the end of the week with the amount of pressure that's being brought on, which means a bigger bench. It wouldn't surprise me if Pereira's on the bench, to be honest, for that game. It wouldn't surprise me if Damari was on the bench as well. But definitely under. I think he looked a little bit off the pace against Liverpool, maybe a little bit in awe of the surroundings of where he was. So he didn't look his confident self. But I think he's definitely worth persevering with. I think the one who may start to disappear from the bench is going to be Perez as we get players back. But I think it'd be nice. It'd be nice to see a route back for Gray to see whether and particularly in a game like this, late on in a game for him to get 15 minutes and maybe show his value. But I know there's probably a lot of people shaking their head already as I'm saying that. But who knows? It's a squad game.
Yeah, so somebody there, and that might be Mrs. Twigger again. Great plan, Craig.
Thanks, Brendan.
Casper's kicking needs sorting out. I think Casper's kicking's needed sorting out for about the last 10 seasons, hasn't it? It
was interesting. Interesting against Liverpool that, and they made a lot of talk about it. Carragher did, especially that we weren't playing out from the back. So we were kicking long. I think the Casper's kicking has disappeared as a talking point has disappeared because we've been playing out from the back. His kicking is not the best, but to be honest, I would rather him kick it to the halfway line and it go out of play 2 out of 5 times rather than us trying to play out from the back. It just gives me palpitations.
It does me as well, and especially when we're sort of 1-0 down in the 83rd minute and we're still tippy-tapping it back across the back four. I mean, just bringing up a couple of points there, and I have lost it now. About Pratt, I do like Pratt. I've got to be honest with you. I think he does add something to the game. And like you said, maybe in place of Tielemans. Problem is we're getting to a point now where we are having to sort of pick and choose. That was what Matthew said. I think the whole team looks different with Pratt in. I couldn't be honest with you. I think Gray. I think he does deserve another chance. Maybe Brendan's. Maybe the manager that might get the best out of him. We've said this with Kelechi last season. Sometimes it needs a manager to come in and everybody said with Gray maybe he was sort of his mind was thinking he was a better footballer than his feet was allowing him to be, to put it politely. But he does have a go. He does run at the defence, doesn't he? And he does. If you get the ball in the box, you don't know what's going to happen. No,
I think what I do like about him, he is positive, and I think most people would agree he is a better finisher than Barnes. He's allowed Barnes to get in front of him in the pecking order. Now, maybe someone sat him down and said, you're at a top 6 club. Whether you like it or not, we should be challenging top 6 most seasons now. I'm not sure anybody bigger is going to come and get him. So he really needs to knuckle down and realise the opportunity that he's got. Otherwise, I think he'll find himself. He'll probably find himself out on loan in January, if not because he doesn't need.
And these days, if you're not playing, you're not seen, you're not going to sort of get him. If he's not happy with us, he's not going to get a move away. But Matthew wasn't. I don't think he's obviously looking at that. I don't think Matthew's the biggest Gray fan there. But just before we move on to a couple of games, I just want to say this is a new feature. We've got it up on the website, LeicesterTillIDie.com, and it's a foot in both camps. Now, obviously, I can't put every player up there because we'd be here until 9 o'clock this evening, but just a couple of reminders of players who have donned the blue of Leicester and also the white of Fulham. I'm sure there's a lot of people, or a lot of the younger fans, we sat there going, "Who's Steve Earle?" But I think looking, yeah, I remember him. I mean, looking at that, and Paul Konchesky's. I loved him. I think he was a much maligned player for Leicester, but I would certainly wish we had somebody like a Stan Collymore as a backup now in the squad, but not so much Elvis Hammond. He left the building, as they say, and failed regularly to come back.
I think he was probably the Damari Gray of his time. Similar style, similar position, and flattered to deceive most of the time.
I think most of that Craig Levein team were the same. I mean, who can forget Mark de Vries?
I can remember him scoring. I think he scored a brace against Spurs on a 3-2 televised game, and
cup win as well. That
remember.
Was, yeah. I think we were like 2-0 down. I think we were 2-0 down. We came back and he scored the winner. And I'm like, what? This is like, like gold cow poo. It just didn't happen. But right, well, talking of memories and talking about when we played or when we have played Fulham, Leicester. A very, very good, if I said 19 seconds or 14 seconds to you, sorry, if I said 14 seconds to you, you'd immediately know what I was talking about. Now, if I said 78 seconds, would you remember? And you probably would, but it was the 1982-83 season, the last game of the season, Leicester and Fulham both going for promotion. We were at home to Burnley, and I think we hit the bar. We did everything but go in. Fulham lost to Derby, but 78 seconds. What was the 78 seconds?
Yeah, well, I remember I was at the home game, the Burnley game, and I think I briefly mentioned this a few weeks ago. I'd been to every game that season, home and away, including cup games. We got knocked out of the cup early twice, I think, including a wonderful midweek trip to Millwall that lives long in the memory. They actually beat us. I think John Fashanu was playing for them at the time, and they beat us 2-1 in the cup. And they still came on the pitch and tried to get into the away end. Love Millwall. So I was at the 0-0 Burnley game. I think I jumped over the turnstiles because I've been every game, home and away, and they were saying it was a full house, so no one could come in. But I wasn't having that. I don't think I can get done for retrospective skullduggery like that. So
you've got a past that's coming out now, Craig. You look so innocent there, and now we know.
That's just between us and the 4 people that are watching. So anyway, we had a good season that season. However, Fulham were in prime spot for the 3rd spot. I think it was Wolves and QPR. I think were sort of running away with it. It was between us and Fulham really for that 3rd spot. No playoffs back in those days. Fulham, as we went into March, so Fulham had a 7-point lead over us with a game in hand. And then we went on a 15-match unbeaten run, culminating in the 0-0 with Burnley, which meant that Fulham, in their last game of the season, were away at Derby. If they won, they would get promoted and we'd be the ones missing out. Derby managed to do us a favour. They scored, I think, with about 20 minutes to go. Because it was the last game of the season, I think they were still in with a sort of outside chance of going down. Their fans were getting quite excited. And the fans started coming out of the stands and surrounding the pitch. And I remember one of the Fulham players said it was like a really intimidating atmosphere. And so the crowd are basically surrounding the pitch now. There's a few minutes to go. The referee blew the whistle on in the 88th minute, and all the crowd came on, and he actually blew for an offside. But the crowd
free kick, didn't he?
Yeah, so the crowd came on, covered the pitch. Apparently, there was a lot of threats to the Fulham players who immediately tried to run off the pitch. Went into the changing rooms, and the referee came in and spoke to both managers and said there's still 78 seconds to play of this game, but there was no way that they could actually clear the pitch and play the extra 78 seconds. And by all accounts, a lot of the Fulham players were sort of fearing for their lives and didn't want to go back out there and play anyway. So what happened in the end was that the result stood. Fulham would have needed 2 goals. They took a 1-0 defeat. We got promoted. And just like the Trump administration, Fulham took it to court. So they had 2 appeals, both thrown out. I think they wanted to go for a third time, but it was made clear to them that nothing was going to change. So the result stood. They lost 1-0 to Derby. We drew 0-0 with Burnley, and we got promoted. And I think we had a run of about 4 seasons in the old First Division at that time. So 78 seconds, and we got promoted.
I think Malcolm McDonald was the Fulham manager, and I think he was the first one to ring us and in fairness of fair play, congratulate us. But yes, it was like,
Sorry, Chris. Apparently, they got support for their appeal from Gordon Milne, who was the manager, Leicester manager at the time, because he said if he'd have been there at the time, he'd have had the referee round the neck, saying, "You get this 78 seconds played." But I think if it was 1-0, and if it was 1-1 and they only needed a goal, maybe that would have been a little bit different. But the fact they had 78 seconds and they needed 2 goals probably softened it a little bit in terms of the appeal.
Yes. Well, we're going to stay in that season and for your classic match, Craig's classic match, CCM. And we haven't had that many, like we say. There's not been that many of recent years, but it was from that season that you've chosen your Leicester Fulham classic match.
It was, and by no means was it a classic. But I remember being there, and I remember it for very strange reasons, and quite possibly the most stupid match that I went to. So it was the away game at Fulham, and in the end, the game was sort of incidental. We won 1-0. Ian Wilson scored the goal for us, and it obviously put us in prime spot. Yeah, it put us in prime spot to get to get promoted. I mean, if that result had gone the other way, or even with a draw, as it turned out, Fulham would got promoted. So that 1-0 victory was really important to us. So it was a great away day. However, I do remember that I went down with a couple of mates, and we were walking down near the ground, and walking across the road from a pub that was frequented by Leicester City fans. All outside, all, shall we say, very merry, who started shouting a load of abuse at me and my mates. I had no idea. There was even a bottle thrown at one point, and then I noticed that I was with 2 other mates, and very quickly I was on my own. And and I'll name check you, Derek Frost and Dave Marriott. Thank you very much for your protection in running away. But it was only at that point that I realised, for some stupid reason, my outfit that I'd chosen that day was purely black and white. So as I,
Ooh.
so as I passed the pub full of drunken Leicester fans, no wonder they thought that I was some kind of freakish Fulham mascot, and decided to take out their pre-match anger on me. But luckily, I did survive. I did catch up with my mates again, and it all ended pretty well with a 1-0 victory. But it lives long in the memory for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, always check your colours that you wear. I remember,
exactly.
As you know, because I lived just outside Bournemouth, and my home matches, if you like, because they are literally 10 minutes down the road, was Bournemouth. And for a few seasons, I actually had to sit in the Bournemouth end, and I always had my blue shirt on underneath, but over the top a shirt that I made sure had at least a lot of red in it. So but then we might not be too far, fans going back, even if it's only the 2000. I think it depends on sort of Leicester's tier rating, but fingers crossed that we might slowly be getting back there.
Yeah, hopefully. As I say, I think Leicester's tier rating means if we're lucky, we'll get 2,000 in there. It was interesting that apparently the chairman or owner of Huddersfield has challenged the government to show their figures to see where they plucked these numbers from, because saying if you're in a clear area you can have 4,000 fans in. Now, for instance, let's take Manchester. Let's say Manchester was in a lower tier, that they're probably going to be in the highest tier, and no fans will go in. But what that means is Rochdale could take 4,000 fans into their ground, which will probably, with all due respect, fill it. Manchester United could also put 4,000 in their ground. So I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the way they've just plucked these figures out of the air. I think it's great news that there's fans back in, or it looks like the fans are going to be back in. But I think it has to be surely done on a minimum number, whether that's 2,000, whether 4,000 is the minimum, and then it's done on a pro rata percentage, because it makes no sense.
I was about to say do it as a percentage of the of your capacity, if you like, But anyway, we've got to say, apparently Bournemouth are 1-0 up against Forest. I want them back in the Premier League, only so I can go and see. It's a 10-minute return, a 20-minute return journey compared to 7 hours. But
when I was a kid, my grandma used to live in Bournemouth, in Christchurch, just outside Bournemouth. So I often went down there. So they were always the team that I looked at as sort of the lower team, and I often rode past the ground on my bike, but never thinking that they would ever be a Premier League team in those days.
Well, like when I came down 10, 11 years ago, they were collecting money in buckets outside a couple of theatres trying to keep the club going. But Craig, at least, like I say, we're moving in the right direction. As always, been a pleasure, and thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Let's hope we get a couple of wins this week. I think if we beat Braga, I think was good as dusted in there. And let's get back to winning ways with Fulham. But take care of yourself, Craig. And if I don't see you before, I'll see you next Tuesday. Cheers. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone. So thanks a lot to Craig there for joining us at the Fountain of All Knowledge. And he will be back, presumably next Tuesday. I just don't know when we've got games at the moment. It just gets so confusing. I know there's one weekend we haven't got a game, but there's still two to be put in the schedule. And I know everything's being changed around, obviously, so they can be shown on telly. But like I say, thanks to Craig. If not, we will, as I say, hopefully see him next Tuesday. Thanks to everybody for watching, and thanks for joining in. It's all worthwhile when you do that. We do it for you. If you've missed any of the show, or you want to just catch up on it, and you had to nip off to get something to eat, we've gone on a bit longer tonight. You can catch us on YouTube And Leicester Till I Die TV, like I say, it's up there now, so you can catch that up straight away. And if you prefer to listen rather than watch us and having to look at myself in the mirror every morning, I don't blame you. I'd sooner just listen to us. So you can get us on Spotify, and you can also get us on Google Podcasts as well. And there's a few others, but Spotify and Google, both in the Leicester Till I Die, and you can listen to us. We'll be back tomorrow. Not sure of the time exactly yet because I might have something coming up I'm waiting to hear on. But we'll be back tomorrow. We'll let you know in the group. And it will be with Mark and the pre-European show when we're looking at the Braga game. And after that, obviously, post-match on the other side of the game on Thursday night. Take care of yourself. Thanks for watching. And whatever you do, stay safe. Bye now.
Thank you, gentlemen. Someday I will repay you. Unless, of course, I can't find you or if I forget.
Hey guys, Ian Hume here, ex-Fox in the Box. Watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV and follow them on social media for all the up-to-date Leicester City news and information. Cheers.
Shut up and sit down.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too or I'll be back.